Um, okay, so Jai Mohanji, welcome to everyone here today. I am Runa, and I'm here at the MCV USA, hosting our first session of the experience sharing in the transformation series. Okay, that was quite the mouthful. Um, Let me actually first start by even sharing what the intention for us gathering here. Mohanji was here visiting the Mohanji Center of Benevolence in Virginia not too long ago in September. So when he was here, this is exactly what he said. He said, in our path of Datta, testimonials have the power to transform, and this should be read every day. So this really struck a chord, and actually, this is really the inspiration for us to get started on this. Um, I'm hoping that all of us here in the Mohanji family can come together and share our experiences of transformation that we've experienced, in our day-to-day lives since we've connected with Mohanji. And hopefully, in that process of sharing our stories, we can all learn and inspire each other. The format of these sessions will be first, it's an open forum, anybody can come and share. And no experience is too small, or no transformation is too small, even if it's like just begun. Yeah, so I encourage everyone to come and talk. Second, we will have in every session one invited Mohanji family member who will come and share their own personal, unique transformation that they've experienced in their lives, just to kind of kickstart these sessions. And today it is dear Natesh. And I know many of you already are familiar with Natesh, but I'd still like to take a moment and say a few words about him. Actually, Natesh, I think even you don't know that I first met you in Serbia, even before I actually physically met you, because I met your music first. And we all know that Natesh is a wonderful Kirtan singer, but really what stands out to me is his Kirtans and his chants are almost like I would say, a signature to the Mohanji family world. Because, any retreat you go, Mohanji's retreat you go, you first hear Nitesh's voice welcoming everyone. And I think it also helps us to connect with Mohanji. So I really sincerely thank you for that service. Um,
It's
and
my honor and privilege. Thank you.
Yeah, and I just wanted to tell everybody that Natesh has been with Mohanji for 10 years. So, I mean, that's an
No, no, no,
incredible
no,
blessing.
no, no, no. You're getting ahead of my arc of curvature here. No, I met him in 2016. So
2016. Okay.
yeah, it's
Okay.
coming up on 8 years. Coming up on 8 years.
Okay. Almost 10 years, but 8 years for now. And it's still an incredible blessing to be with him for so long. So I would like to now move it to Natesh for him to share with us what his journey of his transformation has been. So over to you, Natesh, and welcome also.
Thank you, Jim Mohanji, everyone, and thank you very much for inviting me to uh, kick off this, testimonial series that you have going. And it's an honor, and so I want to thank you. And I really wish I could have made it to the MCB when Moji was there, and it just wasn't meant to be. For reasons I'm not going to get into, for something that's going to be posted online. But universe didn't support that happening, and so I uh, I look forward to it. I look forward to it, especially hearing the stories from what other people are saying about their experiences about being in various uh, MCBs around the world, and what that energy is like and so forth. So, I've been very blessed to have spent a lot of time with Mohanji and in India, particularly the period of time between my very first trip to India in 2016, which was when I met Mohanji. I became aware of him as I was planning the trip, and so I might speak to that for a moment. And then when the whole COVID sort of thing went down, I was actually in India and had to leave a week early in order to get across, the couple of ponds before they closed the borders, and you wouldn't be able to leave India at all. And I know some people that actually got basically stuck there for several months. And so anyway, I made it out, and that was a good thing. I easily, talk for an hour plus if I'm just sharing all my various experiences. Runa's asked me to kind of focus more on what the transformation is from being connected to Mohanji. So it's going to end up being a mixture of those two things, because I think a lot of the transformation comes around having had the opportunity to be in his physical presence for extended lengths of time over multiple years. And I consider that to be a great blessing. I'd like to just share quickly how I found out about Mohanji. And it's also part of describing my experience in general about being with Mohanji since and the transformation. That my background is that I've been on a spiritual path of one form or another, connected with the traditions of India since the 1970s. And it was actually, wanting to visit the Samadhi shrine of my first guru, that doing a search about how to do that online as part of planning my trip led me to a blog site where I found out about Mohanji. And just amazing synchronicity, and so I was like, who is Mohanji and why is he visiting this place? And went to the website, read about him, watched a few videos, and I was like, yeah, wow, he's so focused on liberation, he's so clear in his answers to everything. He gives satsang in English, which my guru at the time did not. And I thought, literally what was in my head was, what's not to like? and so I looked to see if there was possibly a program or some way to, I saw there was an events section on the webpage, so I went there. And sure enough, they were having a weekend program outside Mumbai, or near Mumbai, I think is how it was put. And it happened to be starting the day after this yatra or pilgrimage that I'd planned with some other Westerners was scheduled to happen. So that was the only thing that was fixed in what I wanted to do, like a month, and that was 2 weeks long. So, and I knew I wanted to visit Ganesh Puri. And so the somewhere near Mumbai turned out to be this little town called Nimboli, which is right across the river from Ganesh Puri. And so it was clear that, I was supposed to go there. And then I ended up going there first, so I could pay my respects to my first guru, and spent some time there. And his guru was Bhagavan Nityananda, and Mohanji has multiple connections to Nityananda, which some of you may be very familiar with. And so it would make perfect sense for him to visit Ganesh Puri. And so that's what began the journey, and it was a weekend program, and I felt so welcome. One of the people connected with Mohanji later shared that he had said something to them. How did this guy find me? Well, I think he knew actually, but it was just maybe something for conversation. But then when I had an opportunity to speak with him, he basically, he just came right out and said, Bhagavan Nityananda brought you to me. And so and that made perfect sense to me based on how I found out about him, and my intention to visit there anyway. And then get to be, visiting Ganespoti and also, connecting with Mohanji at the same time. And so then I was back, roughly 7 months later, I think it was. Meanwhile, he was coming to Virginia 3 weeks after that program in Mumbai. And so I found out I could also go attend that program. And this was an interesting little thing that happened. I shared with Runa when we spoke a little bit a week ago, that on my way there, I lost my driver's license. And I was supposed to rent a car. I couldn't rent a car. I had a friend drive me there. And so I phoned back to Sedona and said, please overnight my passport because I don't want any problem getting on a plane on Monday. And then the very first dinner, like Friday night at that program, I happened to have the opportunity to sit right next to Mohanji. And he said, Natesh, what are you going to do after this? And I said, well, I'm flying back to Arizona on Monday. He said, well, why don't you come to Canada with me? And I'm thinking, well, because I'm flying back to Arizona on Monday. I have it all planned out. And then there's this wonderful fellow named Sanjay Acharya, who was sitting directly across the table from me, and I didn't know him from anybody. We'd been briefly introduced because we were roommates, and that was the extent of it, really. And Mohanji says, well, Sanjay drove down here from Toronto. You can ride back with him. In fact, you can help him drive, and you can stay with him and his wife for a week. And I was like, and he's like, oh yes, Natesh, please come stay with me and my wife for a week. And I was like, and then I said back to Mohanji, but I mean, there's not going to be any programs for, till next weekend. And he said, well, you're going to be with me. I was like, well, this is sounding better all the time, And so I made it happen. I found out it wasn't going to cost that much to change my flight, to fly back from Toronto. And I went for it and had some amazing experiences as a result of doing that. But I would not have been able to go to Canada if I had not lost my driver's license and had my passport on the way, because you need the passport to cross the border. And so at the end of that weekend, the program was just breaking up. Mohanji was still sitting at the front, and I was probably 20 feet away at least, and facing away from him. And I don't remember who I was speaking with, but I said, I was thinking about saying something to Mohanji, but I'm not sure. And I no sooner got those words out of my mouth than Mohanji said, so Natesh, what do you want to tell me? And I'm like, oh, well, okay. Well, since you've asked, I wasn't sure I wanted to actually say this, but now that you've got this all arranged for me to come to Canada with you, would you please rematerialize my driver's license? And he just laughed. And nah, didn't happen. Didn't get my driver's. I had to get a new one when I got back to Arizona. I did help Sanjay drive to Toronto, though. I did the 1 a.m. to 6 a.m. shift without a driver's license. But nobody knows. Well, now everybody knows. But yeah, so that was, and then like a month later, I was with him in the Bosnian pyramids, and did that program there, and that was like really extraordinary. And so anyway, amazing experience after amazing experience. But to kind of focus in on the transformational part. Actually, I did the Consciousness Kriya training in Virginia, and then they had another one in Toronto a week later, and so I was exposed to the whole training. Mohanji at that time was doing the trainings himself, and the training and the initiation would happen in the same program. For any of you that are newer, know that that's quite different now. You can end up waiting months or more for the initiation if you don't have the opportunity to be around Mohanji. But if I focus in on the transformation part, I kind of put it in my thinking, like two different kinds of transformation. There's the purely inner transformation, which is only known to me. And then there's the transformation, the inner transformation that gets reflected outside in some way through words and actions and so forth. And so I think the shortest one to talk about, I'll dispense with first, and that's the what I call the purely inner transformation. And you know, from being on the journey for some period of time, and you know, having the experience of what I understand to be having a Kundalini awakened, I would shift into essentially altered states, subtle altered states, you know, just nothing like, not in the LSD category, you know, not like that. I could still know where everything was and what was happening around me and all of that, but just more like a subtle perceptual shift. And those have just become more, more easily attained since I spent time with Mohanji. And I first experienced it actually with the iCard, and realizing that I could make that shift by gazing at the iCard. And back in those days, they were handing them out to anybody that wanted one. Now it's just part of the consciousness kriya. If you do the consciousness kriya, you get an iCard. But in any case, I now will have experiences of shifting, even if I'm not around Mohanji. But the fact that I was making those shifts when I was around Mohanji was also one of my experiences that told me that the Shakti, the energy was there, that he had that that energy, that power, that Shakti. And so that was one of the things that was like, you know, check that box. Yeah, that's happening. And so, you know, when I got back from India, I mean, I literally, it was like my last 3 days there in India, except for the travel day, were the days that I spent for that weekend program. And I had not even thought past my trip to India until I got back. And, you know, like within a day or two, I was going like, wow, I think Mohanji was coming to the US. So, you know, that's when I was like, oh yeah, let's see if I can, you know, let's get some more of this, you know. And so that's when I made arrangements to get to Virginia and had all that experience. But I think more importantly, in terms of how I reflect into the world, would be the other category of transformation, which is the, you know, what's reflected in an outward way. And I made some notes here just to kind of keep myself on track so I don't talk forever about things that aren't related to transformation. So I would say one of those is just in terms of Mohanji is like makes the teachings, he just breaks everything down to such a kind of a simple way. So, you know, the whole idea of not gossiping, not criticizing, not complaining, not judging, all of that. I think I've integrated that into my daily existence in a much better way than I had before. You know, I'm now, I'll be the first to admit that the one that's the hardest to sort of put, you know, on the reins and exercise control over is the judging. And we're so conditioned to do that, you know, and not all of it's bad. I mean, you know, it's like if it comes to judging another person, that's different than like, oh, you touch a, you know, a hot stove and you say, oh, that's hot, so I can't do that. You know, that's discrimination. But so it becomes a more subtle thing than with a judging, because, you know, I've become aware of the fact that I've reached some conclusion about this person is this way or this person is that way, just because of what they've said or something, or maybe even just how they're showing up in you know, in physically in the world, or whatever it might be. And our mind does that. So I think the more important thing is to not pay any attention to it. And if I'm aware of it, and I think I've become more aware of it, fortunately, then I can just kind of like cancel that. I mean, just say that person might not be like that at all. I don't know. And so I think those are kind of, more, I mean, that's an inner process, of course, but the not complaining, not criticizing, not gossiping, those, I think people that have known me for some time would probably, they wouldn't necessarily know that I haven't been. If I pointed it out to them, they would see the difference, because they aren't, it's not like I'm around them that much or whatever, So I think, and perhaps, well, not perhaps, definitely even more important is I think I've been able to be more calm, have more stillness with respect to my own life experiences, whatever happens to be going on in my life at the moment, which is seeing, its fair share of challenges. And one of them actually came up very quickly. Um, like, let's see, was it May? May I was in Bosnia of 2016. And so in June, I was at a conference to do some chanting in California, Desert Hot Springs, and I had some dizzy spells, and I didn't know, um, because a lot of different things can cause dizziness. What really was happening, it would resolve in about 20 to 30 minutes, and so that, it was like one episode a day, maybe for like the 3 days. After the conference, I'd actually been asked to go to Malibu with a gentleman who I had driven over there, who also happened to be the conference organizer. And he was invited to Malibu and asked me to go there. And I was like, well, I'd rather go back to, just like when I was in Virginia, I'd rather go back to Arizona. But I took him to Malibu, where I had a couple more of these episodes. And then he ended up staying, and I drove back to Arizona. It was like a 500-mile drive. And I think I saw that Ganesha was on the call here, and he phoned me while I was on that drive. And at the moment, I wasn't having any symptoms, and I wasn't even thinking about the fact that I'd had some. And he said, Mohanji called me and he's asking about you, and so I thought I better check with you and make sure you're okay. And I said, I'm fine. I don't know why he would be asking you to check on me. And so now Ganesh and I have talked about this since then, multiple occasions, or been around people where it's come up, um, and I think I was on the phone for about 5 minutes, and he says he kept me on the phone for like 45 minutes. So just to make sure I was okay. But I got back home. I had one more episode of dizziness when I got out of the car in Phoenix, and which I still had another hour and a half to get home. But it was already like 11:30 at night, and I was just exhausted from the drive. And so I ended up just napping in the car for like 90 minutes, and ended up getting home around 2:30 in the morning. The next morning I woke up and I went to say something, and it kind of came out totally garbled. And I was like, oh God, this is actually a stroke. And I mean, I knew enough to know the garbled speech was that. And it was one of the possibilities of where the dizziness could have been coming from. Excuse me. The one thing I forgot to bring over here was a little bit of water to sip, but I'll just end up clearing my throat a few times. I think I'll be okay. And so we just immediately went to the emergency center and went through that whole thing. And, it was proven that I had a stroke and there was a blockage. There's a couple of kinds of stroke. There's the bleeding type and then the blockage type. And I had the blockage type. And I was just like in the moment with it all. It was just like, well, this is what's happening in my world. And so, I mean, it's not like, I'm just reflecting back onto an experience that I had before Mohanji, which is not necessary to share. Popped into my head, sorry. So my recovery from the stroke was like super fast, and like surprising all the doctors. You know, by the time I got to the rehab place, I had like one session with the speech therapist, and she said, well, just keep talking. There's nothing I can do to help you because you're already, you know, starting to speak well. And I had asked someone to bring my guitar over. It's about an hour and a half away from Sedona in Prescott. And so the first day I'm like trying to form chords, and I couldn't quite like even, you know, like move my fingers a little, not even really get them there. And the next day I could like put one finger down at a time, and then the next day I could like actually just change from one to another with slowly. And then the day after that, it was like it never happened. And so I was walking. Actually, the first night there, I was ambulatory. I got out of my room. A lot of people after a stroke, you know, they're so paralyzed on their typically left side that they have to be wheeled around in a wheelchair. But I was able to walk the entire time. And so anyway, without going into a lot of details about all of that, the recovery was very fast and like surprisingly so. And again, then the next time I saw Mohanji in Virginia, he had a group from Sedona get together for a little private thing, and I was sharing this experience, and I mentioned how you know, he was aware of the fact that I was having some kind of a health issue from halfway around the world. You know, he's in India, and here I am in California at the time, and before I did, you know. And he kind of looks at me and goes, well, it was more than that. And I was like, okay. And he proceeded to say, the reason that you had those like episodes that you weren't really sure what was going on was because the tradition stepped in and spread out the effects of what you were supposed to experience. And so that was mind blowing to me. I mean, I don't, yeah, I can't prove it, but I have no reason to disbelieve it, you know, and particularly when you look at the how rapid my recovery was. There had to be so much grace there, you know, whether it was Mohanji or the tradition. He won't take credit for any of it anyway. It's always the tradition. And so but you know, maybe it was easy to roll with it all because I was recovering pretty quickly. But I mean, you all know that I chant, and I love to chant, and that's what I do. And so, you know, as soon as I was able to like sit in front of my phone and record myself chanting something while I was still in the rehab hospital, I did that, and then posted up to let everybody know, see, I can still do this. And you know, so fortunately there hasn't been much in the way of long-term effects, and I think that it's just, that's a very, you know, important part of my personal experience of getting to understand who Mohanji is in the sense of that expanded awareness, and so I think it's valuable to share that with other people so that they can have that awareness. I think that's written up in one of the Guru Light books, which are about testimonials, and there's a whole series of them now, and I do recommend that you read through those because there a lot of people have had very powerful experiences from being around Mohanji. What else do I have here? I think well, I did want to mention that I thought that just maintaining a strong connection to Mohanji has a lot to do with whatever transformation that I'm experiencing. And there's specific things, of course. I think, you know, consciousness Kriya was one from the beginning because I, you know, literally it was the second time that I met Mohanji, and 3 weeks after the first time that I was accepted to do the training and be initiated. And then except for periods of like super heavy duty seva where I was doing 70 hours a week with various seva things that I don't need to go into details of. I found it impossible to keep regular with the Kriya when that kind of level of intensity of seva was going on. But that I've managed to have that be more calm and be very, very regular with Kriya for a couple of years now. And so how are we doing on time, Runa?
Yeah, we're okay.
Okay. Because I think the main thing that I wanted to share in the aspect of transformation, just to follow on with what I just said about maintaining that connection, is that what I've experienced is really working for me in helping to maintain that connection. And there's so many different ways, the watching the videos, the reading the books, the listening to the podcasts, doing the meditations. I find that doing Arati daily is very powerful. And just, connecting with his image while I'm doing the Arati is very powerful. I think, for those that have become eligible to do Maitri and Mohanji energy transfer, which I have for both, and Mohanji actually recommended that. I've had a long history of health issues, and so one of the times that I had the opportunity to be with Mohanji personally for a moment, I just asked him what he would recommend for me given all of that, and he suggested that I start doing the MET or Mohanji energy transfer and the Maitri. So I proceeded to move forward with all of those. I don't have many requests for the Maitri, and that's been okay because my time really hasn't allowed for me to do much, particularly for that really intense period. But I think those things are helpful with the connection, and then being involved with seva activities. There's just like a direct connection when you're being in service to the mission, and therefore in service to the tradition. And so those are just some of the things I want to encourage people to consider if they aren't already experiencing those things on a regular basis. And of course, the consciousness Kriya and being regular with that. But I think from a transformation standpoint, that's pretty much what I wanted to say. I could share a lot more experiences if there's more time, or maybe people have questions or something. So.
Okay, wow, thanks so much, Natesh. Actually, I know Natesh has so many stories, so for him to like wrap that in 20-25 minutes is seriously a skill. And I know he's sort of had to like just basically just touch upon each thing and move forward. And I can tell. And actually, there are just so many things, Natesh, you mentioned that like have really stood out to me. And even if I were to start speaking on that, that would like take forever. But I did want to mention two things because it really, that's something I've personally also seen with connecting to Mohanji. And the word connection here, I feel, is important because that is what delivers the transformation, the connection to your guru, to Mohanji. One is the Aarti, because that's something new for me too. And because right here at this moment, I have the opportunity and gift to be at the MCB and therefore do these Aartis. it has been a phenomenal experience, something I never imagined. For me, it was like, oh, a nice, sweet song to listen to doing that. And I can really tell the energy is just, it's something else. So, yeah, thanks for bringing that up because many of us, I didn't know that personally. Now I'm experiencing that.
That's
Um,
great. Beautiful.
yeah, yeah, thank you. I think the other thing that really stood out to me was you mentioned how transformation can have so many forms, right? There's one that we see within ourselves, one that we sort of project externally, or how we interact with the world, what that transformation now, how we've now changed in our interactions with the world, or how the world sees us. So there are just so many different forms of transformation that we can sort of see in our lives. So I think I would also love to open it up to everybody here. If they want to, just if any of you want to share transformation or change, or even like a process of change that begun that you're observing in your life since, you're connecting to Mohanji or his teachings, that would be really wonderful to sort of here, because I think, like Natesh mentioned, either it's a personal transformation that you see for yourself, or how you interact with somebody else. Has that changed for you? Or how you interact with the experiences that come into your life? Would love to hear. And of course, Natesh is here, so if anybody also wants to ask him more things, that's also fine.
Floor is open. Runa, you're muted.
I was saying I can't see anybody's faces. I can only see Natesh. So,
No.
um,
Sorry, I don't know how to pronounce Haldule.
Yeah, that's me, Gauri.
Ah, God. Okay, hi.
Yeah.
Would you like to say something?
Yes, Jai Mohanji. Thank you, Natesh, for all the experiences that you shared. Would really like to, listen to you more. I just have one question. When you started this journey, what were the hurdles you faced?
You mean going back to the beginning of my journey
No, when you started connecting to Mohanji,
to Mohanji?
if hurdles that you faced.
To be honest, I feel like there weren't any hurdles. When I connected with Mohanji, I mean, if there's any hurdle at all, it's the one, it's the distance, the physical distance between where I am and wherever he might be in the world at the moment, and that's I think another reflection maybe out of my own personal experience recently was when I knew he was going to be at the MCB and I wasn't able to be there. And I wasn't like dejected or bummed out or anything, it was more like in the category of, well, it'd be nice to go, but I can't go. So it is, and as much as I enjoy being around Mohanji and being in the physical presence and understanding the importance of being in the physical presence, I think there comes a point, and I'm not saying I'm there yet, but maybe I'm making some headway where you don't need to have the physical presence, and so and I think again that's something like arati is something that can make that bond just strengthen more and more and more when you're not able to be in the physical presence. So I'm still looking forward very much to whenever the opportunity might be the next time I get to spend with Mohanji, wherever it might be in the world. And that could be in a month, and it could be in 2 years. I don't know right now. And so and whatever's meant to be is what's meant to be. And so the hurdles, when I first connected with the path, when I had the whole idea of having a guru to me was so foreign, to my upbringing and everything else, that I just like, I couldn't never have imagined myself ever having a guru. And once I had one, even though I was having some phenomenal experiences, there was a lot of junk that needed to get, processed. And so, I'm banging on the floor and wailing away and all of that. I haven't had any of that experience being around Mohanji because, fortunately, I've managed to clear a lot of that stuff out, over the decades before I met Mohanji. And so, yeah, the only hurdle really has been loving the idea of being able to spend more time with him and not being able to do it. Even though I can't complain at all about how much time I have had the opportunity to be with Mohanji, because that's been outrageous.
I was just going to say that Mohanji's given Natesh so much time over the past so many years. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's true. Basically, if I knew I was going to be coming to India, I would reach out to one of his assistants and say, is there any chance that I can, spend more time around Mohanji while I'm in India? And I would get the answer, yes, and so and sometimes, like it was after he'd moved to Bangalore, and so I might be in what they call the ashram, which was a house that is, a small, typical house, not like a small house, but for an ashram, it's small. And so that would be, and then he would be going off somewhere else that, wasn't practical for everybody to go with him. But other times it was. And so, there was one morning where when we saw him in the morning, he said, Shiva's invited me to Arunachala. And so I'm headed there this morning or something. And we're all like, can we go? Yeah, can we come along? And we got to go along, and if that hadn't happened, I would never have had that opportunity and do the Gary Valam, from midnight till 4:30 in the morning, and then 3 hours later at the Shiva temple, and just groggy as all get out, but in a supercharged atmosphere. Being a Westerner, I could not go into the Sanctum Sanctorum. Myself and one other person, I think, had to stand outside. That was really strange because there was like a constant flow of Indian people that just got a glimpse of the Shiva Lingam, and we're standing there for hours, and they're kind of looking at us like, how come these guys get to stand here and we got to keep moving? You could see that look on their face, and but it's all Mohanji's grace. I mean, the people that were of Indian descent, they could actually go into the Sanctum Sanctorum. They were there the whole time for the whole Abhishek that was happening, and so that's another thing that's very interesting, is how those doors open, around Mohanji. When I went back to India 6 months later, I'd started to mention was to go to Shirdi, and they had the 10 days on the trails of Shirdi Sai Baba, and we were the entire group. I don't remember the count, but it could have been 60, 70, maybe something like that. And we would visit some of the homes of descendants of people that were with Sai Baba, and they would have certain relics, like one of his tunics or padukas or something, and they were almost always kept covered, and so you could only look at them. But with Mohanji there, they would just open things up. We were able to touch the tunic and put our foreheads down onto the padukas, and just extraordinary things that would never normally happen if you weren't tagging along with Mohanji at the time. And again, that was an actual retreat, so that lots of people were there for that. So I did see Ganesh's comment about stories to tell, but
actually, just to sort of continue on Natesh's line, I know he's been with Mohanji for way longer. And seems like it's been all doors opening for him. But I've been with Mohanji only for 2 years, and I can tell you that actually just the other day I was reading Mohanji was saying that when you connect to a master, tests will come, and that is part of the process, and that's the way your connection is basically strengthened. Those tests are meant. So, whether it's your mind running further or you having more challenges to face. Personally, I know for myself, I noticed that before I used to be much calmer, but now like my mind is much more active, which is also new to me. Because my initial assumption was, oh, you meet a master and everything just calms down, right? But I sort of had the opposite experience. And really talking to Mohanji, I realized because he would always encourage and say, don't worry, that's the nature of the mind. And that's when I started to realize that it's okay, whatever is needing to come up, even if that means activation of my mind, that just needs to release itself. I faced some other challenges too, but I think they're all sort of part of the path. And if you can start just looking at it, so hurdles will come. Each is unique to, at least for me, whatever hurdles I face are unique to me. And I don't know, maybe for you, whatever you're facing might be unique to you. But I do feel like when we meet a master, sometimes, at least I had the expectation that things tend to calm down, but it's not necessarily always the case. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's just something I wanted to share.
Thank you.
Makes sense.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody else wanted to share. I know Jyoti's here, Bhavani. Jyoti, I know you always have something interesting to say, or anybody else.
No, I'm very happy to hear Natesh's story. The thing is, we are all so scattered throughout US, and we know each other by names, but we never quite really know how the journey has panned out. And everyone has their own individual journey, which is so amazing, actually. Even though we are all walking the same path, but to have everybody their individual journey, and it's just amazing. So I'm just happy to hear Natesh's story today. And I'm sure there's so much more, but he's just literally condensed it into, like, I don't know how he's done it, but I mean, when people ask me, I'm like, where do I start and where do I end? I mean, how do I just pick and choose something because everything seems so codependent, correlated. You just cannot pick one part and just talk about it. And there's so much history to it, but good job, Natesh.
Oh, thank
But
you.
it is,
Thank you.
it is inspiring to hear everyone's story. So,
I think that's
and
Well, I look forward to hearing your story as well.
yeah, I think Jyoti,
Sure.
the intention of these calls or, for us to meet is it's meant to be casual. And for us, we'll be doing this more often. So as many stories we all have, any experiences we have, I would love for us, Natesh, to please keep coming back. It doesn't always have to be you're a speaker. And, that's just to sort of give the rest of us inspiration to talk and sort of learn from. But really the intention is that we can all just share whatever it is, even if it's many experiences we can keep just share. Because I was thinking, it's nice when you read, but when you put a face to somebody and a voice and you see their emotion, and what that brings in another dimension to the whole experience that maybe you could read online too. So I think, and it's also a great way for the Mohanji family to connect and keep that connection going. So
Oh, I
Yeah, it's a,
totally agree, Rona. And I'm very happy that you started this, because I always feel that connection with each other. It's very inspiring to see that. Uh, I walked this journey. I didn't have a guru. I walked this journey for many years all alone, and I know how confusing it can be. How it's very difficult when you're completely alone. You don't have any guru whatsoever. But now when I hear all these stories and I see so much connection, and the experiences are very different, and when you're on this journey, they're just not your normal experiences. So it's like any other group therapy. This is also group therapy for us. So I always enjoy these stories, and people are sharing testimonials, and so it's very inspiring, actually. So I'm very happy you started this. So good.
Yeah, I want to say I cannot take any credit because, like I started the session, I said, that Mohanji had said it's really his words that inspired this. He said in our path, I'm just going to repeat exactly what he said. In our path of Datta, testimonials have the power to transform, so they should read them every day. And really, that was the reason for starting this, and wanting to also build a connection with the family, and having sort of like a safe space to come and talk and learn. Because now when I heard Natesh, there are many things I took back and I said, oh, I can do that. So I feel like that's quite helpful. So yeah, I hope we can, if I don't know if anybody else would like to say something or share, or maybe they're keeping their stories for like another session, which is also fine. Otherwise, I think we're almost coming to the end of our meeting. But yeah, if any parting words that we have, we can say. If not, we can close the
Maybe I can just give a small suggestion. Since you are going to invite a guest speaker for the evening to share the story, maybe putting out the name in the announcements. Maybe that will also help people that okay, today this person is coming to speak. Because we've heard about their names, we've read about their work that they are doing, and any of the Mohanji platforms. There is some sort of a connectivity. So when we hear the name of the person, it always feels nice. Oh, I would love to hear the story. I mean, that's just how I think. But yeah,
No, that's great. Actually, we did put Natesh's name out when we sent this.
then maybe I didn't see it properly. Then my bad.
Yeah, I completely agree because that's exciting, right? Like we want to know who's going to talk this time, and usually it's like like you were saying, we may know the person, but we've not sort of really known their journey, and so yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, and yes, you're always welcome with suggestions, names, topics, your experiences, of course. So yes, again, thank you everybody for coming today. I think this family connection is important. I think Mohanji also wants us all in the USA to connect to each other. So thank you so much for giving your time, listening, and bringing yourselves here today. Um, all right, Jai Mohanji. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Aruna.
Thank you
Thank
so much,
you.
Jai Mohanji.
Jai Mohanji.
Aw.
Thank you, Runa. Thank you,
Jai
everybody.
Mohanji.
Jai Mohanji.
Thank you so much, Natesh.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
You can turn off the recording, Ashish.